Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Franklin Smith, and I'm a partner at the Simon Phoenix Group. And I'd like to take this opportunity of welcoming everyone to today's webinar entitled Relieving the Pain of School Data Administration. It's certainly good to have everyone online today. I certainly recognize, and we certainly recognize that these are indeed challenging times for everyone, particularly for schools. And it's our hope that by by sharing some information with you, by letting you know a little bit about who we are and our expertise, maybe that will be able to provide you with a little bit of additional resources and additional assistance. So let me just start by just going through a few quick housekeeping items. Attendees' microphones are currently muted, and that's really done for your convenience. Simply, if your phone should ring or you need to have a brief discussion with someone at your end, feel free to do so. You won't be disturbing the webinar. A PDF version of the PowerPoint slides that I'm going to be going through today are available through the GoToWebinar customer user panel on your screen. And so if you just click in the section labeled handouts, there is a PDF document that you can download. There is going to be a formal presentation and then followed by a question and answer session. You can type your questions into the question pane, which is also available on the GoToWebinar customer panel. Anytime during the presentation, you won't be disturbing me, and we'll run through the questions and answers during the Q&A portion of today's webinar. And today's webinar is being recorded, and that recording we will make available through our Simon Phoenix Group YouTube channel, and everyone will receive a post-webinar email that will direct you to where you can find that recording. So just to let you see that there is a person at the other end of this presentation. Hello, everyone, and again, welcome. And I'm going to actually shut my camera because personally I think it's just more distracting than anything. So anyhow, this is who I am, and I'm just going to introduce myself and our company right now. So yes, my name is Franklin Smith. I'm a partner at the Simon Phoenix Group. Simon Phoenix Group has been in business for over 10 years, and we are a local GTA publisher of a independent school database product called Phoenix NP Complete. We have independent and faith-based school customers throughout Ontario, and the software product itself was developed out of my personal experience. I did serve as executive director of 2 GTA area independent schools for over 8 years. Before that, I was heavily involved in public, private, and nonprofit consulting. And as part of that consulting work that I did, that included work helping to amalgamate the Toronto District School Board back in the 1990s. from its constituent boards. So I'm certainly no stranger to education and the needs of education. And through all that work, I tend to focus my areas of expertise into the areas of strategic planning, change management, consulting, and organizational development. And so, in addition, yes, to publishing and supporting our software product, Phoenix NP Complete, we also provide ongoing data and software consulting to independent school clients. So, what is it that we're going to be covering here today? I really want to focus today's discussion on the whole concept of data administration. Schools, independent schools, are continually being expected to track, manage, organize significantly large volumes of data, and those requirements, those requests, they never tend to go down. They always tend to increase. So there's always continuing pressure on administration of independent schools, continuing pressure to keep in an efficient and effective way very strong data management controls in place. So we're going to talk today about really two different ways in which schools, independent schools, and I'm going to be focusing my comments really on independent schools because that's specifically the market that we work with. Essentially two different main approaches to creating data administration solutions. I want to spend some time on focusing in on some of the key aspects of these various school data administration types that you see on the screen in front of you. And then I'm also going to try and tie it up into some critical recommendations for independent schools that that we have gained over the years, both from the consulting side and as well from providing ongoing database support to our clients. All right, so data administration solutions. Really, there's two main approaches that independent schools use, and the reason I'm focusing on independent schools is we recognize that independent schools are not the publicly funded boards. There are not significant sums of money and not large pools of HR talent that independent schools can draw upon. Budgets are limited. Budgets are continually being stretched. There's continual upward pressure to keep charging more and more in terms of tuition fees in order to be able to meet your budgets. And the last thing independent schools have available to them are large sums of money to acquire sophisticated and highly detailed software packages or invest significant sums of money in IT infrastructure. So what we have tried to do is come to market with a product that is robust, efficient, effective, makes use of existing information technology infrastructure that pretty much every independent school already has in place. And so that's really what's behind the focus of today's presentation. So the first main approach that independent schools take, and most schools when they start out probably start using spreadsheets. Spreadsheets have some significant advantages. They are quite inexpensive to acquire. A license for Microsoft Office Professional or Excel is quite low, quite a small acquisition cost, and they're very flexible tools. You can pretty much do any kind of number tumbling and number crunching that you want. Your only limitation is time and your ability to be able to create, program, and maintain a model in a product like Excel. So it's very easy to maximize effectiveness with some pretty straightforward application of critical thinking and logical thinking skills. It's it definitely comes easier to some people. Other people need to maybe work at it a little bit more. In the end, it's not difficult to learn, and really the biggest way to help yourself learning how to use spreadsheets is to practice with them. As a result of all this, use of spreadsheets within organizations is not limited by large learning curves or cost of acquisition or cost of licensing. So they're quite prevalent in use in organizations. And spreadsheets work within the Windows, the Linux, and the Mac environments, and all of these operating system environments are already being used by independent schools. We have found in our experience that from the independent school side, schools that have student enrollment in any given year of 50 or under tend to go with spreadsheets. They're relatively straightforward to keep things straight from moment to moment. As soon as you get over 50 students, though, things start to get a little bit more cumbersome, and that's when other solutions need to be put in place. So, in terms of we dealt with the pros of spreadsheets. In terms of some of the cons, each spreadsheet solution needs to be individually created, customized, maintained, and that represents an ongoing cost. Whether it's not necessarily dollars that you're paying out to a vendor, but it's a cost in terms of staff time, and you're paying those staff people for their time, ongoing maintenance. So there is a cost there. There with spreadsheets, typically what we've seen is that because it's so easy to copy spreadsheets, because it's so easy to copy data within a spreadsheet, there's typically very high levels of data repetition. So the same piece of data could be repeated multiple times, certainly within a single spreadsheet. As I just mentioned, ease of duplication can very easily cause incorrect or out-of-date data to become widely distributed. And this can become very important, especially when you're maintaining parent contact list information via spreadsheet, and a change comes into the front office. The person at the front office updates their copy, but guess what? There are 10 other copies floating around, and those don't necessarily get updated. And so you can see that it is quite easy to lose track of which version of a spreadsheet represents the most current data. It could happen quite easily. Yes, the internet has been a big boon in terms of allowing individual users to collaborate. And a lot of people make a lot of use of products like Google Drive or Dropbox to promote collaboration amongst different users who can share a single spreadsheet, but it does require as some sort of either central server that you host yourself or a cloud-based central server, but it also requires clear editing protocols, which are typically difficult to enforce. So you need to know who's edited what, when, is the edit current, different colors for editing, different times of editing. There's all sorts of protocols that really need to be considered in order to be able to make that type of ongoing data maintenance work for you. So that's really spreadsheets. The second main type of solution that's in place is database software. And software solutions offer certainly a host of advantages or pros. The software that's properly designed is designed in a centralized server architecture, which allows for a single source of data to be hosted on some sort of centralized server, with no data repetition in that single data source, which thereby ensures that the production version of data is also the most current. There aren't multiple versions of your data currently in production mode floating around out there. Cloud-based versus self-hosted solutions allows for flexibility related to data protection and backup protocols. And that is especially important given over the last 5, 6, 7 years, the tremendous explosion in bad actors out there, people who are trying to hack into systems, trying to use ransomware to encrypt your data and then hold your data ransom. And despite what you may think that I use the we pejoratively, we're not an important organization, or it's not going to happen to us, or what hacker would be interested in a small company in Ontario, or a small to medium-sized independent school in Ontario. Don't kid yourself. There are people out there. This is their job. They do this for I guess the excitement of it. I don't know. I'll never figure out the mindset myself. But we have had clients of ours who unfortunately have been hit, and the saving grace is that with a centralized server architecture, you can easily do backups of your data, and if God forbid something happens and you do get hit, then you can recover easily from a backup. Database solution itself has the advantage that it has been programmed by professional software developers, and that really takes the development function out of the hands of the users. So users do not need to be programmers, software developers. What users need to do is to ensure the currency of their data, ensure that their in-house decision-making, their business processes all follow that same data. And what we rely on our clients to also do is to provide us with feedback on reporting any bugs, any functional enhancements that they would like us to consider, etc. So it really helps to, from an economic standpoint, if you want to view it that way, it provides for a more efficient division and a more effective division of labor, where the programming is with the professional software developers and the client's users are focused on client user issues. So the last piece of this is that because of that, software developers are able to add and program into their products functionality enhancements and bug fixes that all occur remotely. This happens with Windows probably more frequently than any of us would like. But having said that, it's better that we can all do it that way. That way, we can ensure that the software is able to remain current with changing considerations. So some of the negatives or the cons on database software, depending on the solution, can be a high cost of acquisition. Depending on the complexity of the solution, it can be a high cost of ongoing usage and maintenance. Some of the more feature-rich solutions, and there's some really good software out there, they are so feature-rich that they require dedicated staff for ongoing use, which ultimately could be beyond the ability of small organizations to support, both from staffing and cost perspectives. So that's an important consideration. And although some of these, and it's really in the more feature-rich products, have built-in customizable data query solutions, those solutions tend to be very complicated to use, and it just feeds back into the previous bullet point that I noted, which is that just puts more pressure on having dedicated staff who essentially do nothing but manage the in-house database solution. So I'm going to spend the next little bit of time, and I've got my eye on the clock here. I see it's 10:52, so we're doing well for time. I'm going to spend some time now focusing in on the different aspects of data administration that schools need to be mindful of and watch out for. First and foremost, schools need to keep track of their contacts, their parents, their extended family members, their donors, their volunteers, companies that they do business with. They need to be able to track and call up at a moment's notice, address, telephone, email information, you name it. Clearly for parents, the Ontario Ministry of Education kind of expects schools to be able to call this information up at a moment's notice. And for contacts, it's also a good thing to be able to track other bits of information, such as how a contact is related to the school, whether they're as I said, a parent, a volunteer, what have you. If they are a parent at your school, to be able to link parents with extended family members together for reporting purposes, for ongoing data mining purposes. And ultimately, the reason that you want to be able to host all of your data in a single production location is for the purpose of being able to support your decision making and other functions that you need to carry on from day to day, such as sending e-blasts out to your community for in-house decision making, for in-house reporting, etc. So again, being able to have access to all of that data in one location is critical. From student perspective, it's critically important, obviously, to know which students are enrolled in your school, in whatever grade, in whatever year. being able to link your students to their parents and their siblings is also clearly important. Being able to manage your student enrollment year over year, being able to ensure that from one year to the next, you can migrate students from one grade to the next grade, keep track of students that are graduating, keep track of students that are new admissions into the school. All of those things are critically important. Also, student allergies, food restrictions, medications, being able to keep track of all this. Critically important, as all of you out there will know, working in schools. The Ministry of Education requires schools to provide a parental level of care to students when they're at your school during the school day. So being able to know which students are allergic to peanuts or nuts or fish or various medications or various environmental allergens, all of it is critically important. Being able to manage different student types, multiple campuses. Some schools have multiple campuses. Again, those are other items that need consideration. Being able to manage classroom attendance, both during school and if you happen to be running a before or after care program at your school, knowing which students are in your program, which students are absent from your program. There are reporting requirements back to the Ministry of Education for all of that. So again, very important to be able to efficiently and effectively pull that data when it's needed. And quick access of that data is certainly an expectation of governmental authorities, whether it's for student data or whether it's for if you happen to be a registered, an independent school, it's also a registered charitable organization. You know you have obligations to CRA to be able to quickly pull data from your system for tax receiving purposes. So, which we'll get to in a moment. And there's my lead in. So I did that for a reason, clearly. If you are a registered charitable organization, and there are a lot of independent schools that are, we have some of them on today's webinar, then you'll know that you accept donations. Parents and donors expect to be receipted for those donations, and being able to properly link those donations to the donors, record them properly, track them by different fund types, track them by date, track them by contact, track them by the type of contact. Those are all important considerations. You need to be able to clearly link donations not just to individuals, but to partnerships, corporations, any separate legal entity that will make a donation to your school. Schools or charities also like to be able to take pledges and manage those pledges and be able to report back to those who have made pledges what balance is still outstanding. So that's something that needs to be tracked. Of course, being able to, at a moment's notice, generate receipts, generate letters, without having to spend an inordinate amount of time is necessary, and being able to do so either by way of printed paper or electronically is also an important consideration. And just a note on electronic receipt and letter production. And I don't want to spend too much time on it, Our good friends at CRA are happy if registered charitable organizations want to send receipts electronically. But they do have one requirement, and that requirement is the receipt needs to be protected against someone going in and editing it. So, taking $100 and adding a few zeros onto the end of it, or changing names or changing the receipt in any way. So it is possible to do that, but you need to make sure that you do that. Being able to report donations, I mentioned that. Being able to generate reports, year over year by donor, by various different categories is critically important. I do want to spend a brief moment also on those independent schools that are registered charitable organizations and who are also faith-based schools. We certainly have a few of those on the line today. And for those of you that are faith-based schools, you will certainly recognize, and what I'm about to mention is that the annual CRA faith-based tax calculation, or the IC, or Information Circular IC 7523 annual tax calculation, that allows faith-based schools that are registered charitable organizations to issue donation tax receipts for a portion of tuitions paid during the year. So CRA allows those types of organizations to issue donation receipts for a certain portion of tuitions paid as if they were outright donations to the school. There is, from way back, that's why it's called IC 7523, from way back in 1975, an information circular that describes how that calculation needs to be conducted. And we're certainly proud that our software application is the only one that we're aware of that automates and fully supports that tax calculation. And I happen to have the experience of 8 years plus running that calculation by spreadsheet. It's not rocket science, but it is cumbersome. And that was one of the key things that got me thinking about being able to develop a software application that could largely automate that entire process. So for those faith-based schools out there that are registered charities as well, who aren't customers of ours, then by all means, after the webinar, feel free to get in touch with us, and we can show you what our software can do. And of course, being able to, especially when you have an auditor sitting there from CRA, being able to prove to them that the data in your database matches what's on an audited receipt is always a good thing. So we like to keep our friends at CRA happy. All right, so program revenue. We just spoke about donations. That's one form of revenue. Program revenue in general, really we're talking about tuition revenue by and large, and schools out there can charge tuition based on really a couple of different models, either a per student or per family model. Our software supports either or both. Before and after school care programming charges. And it's always a good thing to be able to track student usage of those before and after care programs, and be able to print out statements for parents in order to be able to collect those revenues. We don't like leaving money on the table. So having all that data sitting in one place and being able to push a button and print out statements and then just handing them or emailing them to your parents is always a good thing. Being able to, and this is particularly so for faith-based schools and for support of the IC 7523 tax calculation, being able to directly upload all of that revenue data out of your financial accounting system, because schools like to make use of their financial accounting system to manage the AR side of the business, and that is the right tool to use. But being able to upload all that rather than having to re-enter it is a significant item that also needs to be managed. Staff. There's staff data that needs to be kept track of. It's always a good thing to not have data all over the place. So being able to consolidate key data, contact information, social insurance numbers, all of that, and being able to protect that data so that even if it is in a centralized environment, then only users within that environment who have the authorization to access that data can access that data. Being able to track and manage salary and staff FTE data, being able to manage staff absentee and substitute teacher information, all very important from an HR management perspective. And I'm trying to paint a picture here, and I'm hoping I'm doing it successfully, that independent schools, because of that constant budgetary pressure, it's sort of at least in my experience with the schools that I've been privileged to either work directly for or consult with or have as our customers. Everyone kind of needs to do everything. Everyone needs to be a jack of all trades. And independent schools don't have the budgetary luxury to have dedicated people necessarily doing just one job. So being able to manage all of this and have multiple people being able to get into at least the non-sensitive data or non-personal data and manage that is critically important. Special events. Many schools hold special events, rely on holding special events for additional revenue generation. It can be, an annual gala fundraiser or honoring someone in your community for their efforts on behalf of your school. You're likely going to want to sell tickets, have seating plans, have meals, pre-COVID, of course, and hopefully soon to be post-COVID at some point when we're fortunate enough to get back to perhaps a more flexible time when we don't have to be quite so socially distanced. Being able to link ticket sales to existing contacts in the database for ease of processing, being able to generate reports on all of this for on-site management, and a school's ability to do this efficiently and effectively will directly translate into higher net revenues. In other words, you're going to be able to keep more of the money that you're collecting, because you have a tool in place that allows staff to efficiently and effectively manage things. I've been mentioning reporting, but being able to easily generate reports, being able to generate those reports for students, parents, teachers, admin staff, and senior school leadership is all critical, and being able to do so on a moment's notice is also critically important. Schools rely on, most schools that we know of rely on a combination of standardized reporting and spreadsheet data exports. And most of the standardized reporting is really quite consistent between schools. A class list is a class list. Being able to print out class lists by grade or on a whole school basis, being able to print out your parent contact information, being able to hand that to a teacher for a field trip or send that via email to a teacher's personal device, etc. A lot of the reporting that independent schools need to focus in on is quite standardized, and probably 75, 80% of it is. That other 20%, spreadsheets are excellent tools for being able to manage that non-standard data analysis, just being able to export data out of a database application into a spreadsheet to do various additional analysis, or being able to use that as a means of maintaining consistency with other cloud-based databases, for instance, like a mass email system. Excel is a great tool for being able to transfer data from an in-house application to some other application, whether it's cloud-based or otherwise. Those are some of the key elements that schools need to focus in on. And it's 10 after 11 now. I also want to make sure I leave a little bit of time for questions. So I'm actually exactly where I thought I would be at this time. So we're doing pretty good. So in terms of recommendations, what does all this mean? Like, what is it that I'm trying to say? And if a school that we currently don't have a relationship with were to ask what it is that they thought was important in terms of being able to relieve the pain of school data administration, this is what I would be recommending: that a correctly selected school administration database software package will, if it's properly implemented, will for sure provide greater levels of efficiency and effectiveness over a purely spreadsheet-based solution. Now, there's a caveat to that, and the caveat is what I already mentioned previously. If you're under 50 students, you potentially don't have either the budget perhaps to support, certainly not one of the bigger enterprise solutions, but with 50 students or less, potentially you could manage reasonably well on just a purely spreadsheet-based solution. That's something that would obviously need to be looked at carefully within your own individual case. But we have seen schools that, 20, 30 students that are perfectly capable of managing things with just spreadsheets once you get over that 50 mark. And for sure, if you're happen to be a registered charitable organization and need to do the donations piece of it, and if you're a faith-based school and want to be able to do the faith-based tax calculation, spreadsheets are just going to be too time-consuming. So effective and efficient management of school operations can absolutely be maximized through effective data integration. And there is for sure a direct correlation between levels of data integration and the ability to get more work done with limited staff resources. So what do I mean by data integration? What I mean is having as much data as your organization can effectively manage housed within one single environment. And that is the reason why we developed our software product, because we knew of people out there who had a donations package to manage their donations and generate their receipts. And then they have a package to manage their students. And then they have a third package to manage their contact relationships. and then they use QuickBooks or simply accounting, you can see with multiple sets of data being housed in different applications, being able to integrate this is next to impossible. So we've taken the approach of wanting to ensure that we brought to market a product that was efficient, effective, affordable, and maximize the amount of data that could be integrated and housed within the one environment. So when you actually are going to look at what would be the correct software application, database application for your organization, these are the elements that you need to consider. I've spoken about affordability. Affordability is much more than just the initial price tag or the cost of initial acquisition. It's also the cost of the monthly or annual licensing. What additional hardware or software do you need to have in place in-house for successful implementation? So that's one side of the affordability equation. There's also the complexity side of things. How complex is the software to use? Does it require intensive, dedicated initial classroom style training to begin use? And who pays for it? I mean, there are software applications out there, notably the large enterprise systems, which are excellent products, but they are so complicated to use. You need to fly staff to their offices, obviously at your cost, for 2-3 days of intensive classroom style training just to get yourselves up and running to be able to begin using the package. So that's something to keep watch for. Staffing investment. There's a direct correlation between the complexity of the product and higher staffing investments. So the more complex the software, the greater the likelihood that the organization is going to require one or more dedicated staff to manage the software. And you need to ask yourselves whether your school has that budget flexibility. Staffing capabilities. The best software in the world is going to be absolutely useless if the organization itself cannot properly support the staff in ensuring its efficient and effective use, or if the software itself has been selected without considering the capabilities of individual staff members to use it. So I go back to the example. You could go for one of those, an investment in one of those large enterprise systems, but if your school budget doesn't have the flexibility to be able to send 1 or 2 staff people, fly them, house them, feed them for 2-3 days for that intensive on-site training, then you're probably getting off on the wrong foot with that package. That's probably not the right package for you or for the organization. Organizational requirements is another key thing. Properly matching the organizational requirements to the software capabilities is critical to ensure that the software meets but doesn't overly exceed organizational requirements. You can, again, invest in the greatest package out there, but if you only use 15% of its capabilities, then I would argue that that investment is wasted. Alternatively, you can invest in a package that does 80% of what you want it to do, but you're using that package to a really high degree of effectiveness and efficiency. And I would argue that that's a better investment of schools' limited financial resources. And software support clearly is ongoing support from the vendor included in the ongoing licensing, or is that charged separately? And again, that needs to be considered from a budgetary perspective. So As I mentioned, our product is called Phoenix NP Complete. I did not want this webinar to be just a pure commercial for our software. We're very proud of our software. We're very proud of the clients that we work very collaboratively and positively with and help to support. And we're proud to be able to say that our software does, in an affordable and efficient and effective way, integrate everything that I've mentioned in this presentation, all within one environment, allows everything that I've mentioned, allows a school to really effectively and efficiently manage their data, and in such a way where you can split that responsibility amongst different staff people, so it's not on all one person's head. And the software itself is easy enough to learn to use, so that you can do that. You don't have to have just one person who is the in-house expert. So, as I said, here's my contact information. The PowerPoint slides you can download from the handout section of the webinar pane. And I'm going to leave that up on the screen because we have about 9 minutes left, and I want to get to some of the questions that have so far been entered in, and we do have a few of them. So while I'm addressing some of these questions, by all means, feel free to type any questions that you may have into the question pane as well. So we have a question here about our good friends at CRA, and asking whether our IC 7523 tax calculation has been audited by CRA. And the good news is that CRA has indeed not audited us, or not audited our software code, because CRA thankfully doesn't do that. But what they have done is they have audited schools who are clients of ours and are using our software, and have specifically asked for data to support our calculation. And each and every time, our calculation passes audit with flying colors. In addition, we are certainly aware of clients of ours whose donors themselves, who have received receipts, donation tax calculation receipts, they themselves also have been audited, and again, passed with flying colors. So yes, and we've also, by the way, we also went through a very interesting exercise with one of our very long-standing clients, an independent school in southwestern Ontario, who, as part of the decision-making process to bring our software on board, actually wanted to do a comparison between their calculation off of spreadsheets and our calculation using our software. And we did that comparison, and when all of the data was analyzed, there was one difference noted, and that difference was in the full-time equivalent student headcount. Our software was calculating a number that was about 20 student FTEs lower than what our client was. And when we tracked that difference back, that difference actually tracked back to students that the school was considering in their calculation, who the treasurer, by virtue of going through this exercise, realized that they actually should not have been considering. So through that very detailed exercise, we proved for ourselves and for this long-standing client of ours the accuracy of our calculation. So that, I hope, answers that question. We had another question about signing up and how to help a school get up and running. We would be more than happy to spend time with any school who is interested in looking at our software. We are happy to be able to do a remote demonstration of our software, allow you to push buttons and see how easy it is to use. The purpose of today's webinar was not really to do that, but we're happy to follow up and organize that with anyone. The actual sign-up process itself is really quite straightforward. There's a licensing agreement, and there is a process that we go through where you provide us with as much historical data in specific formats, and we have those formats via spreadsheet that you can provide that data to us by, and we will upload that data into our software before we install it on your system. So when we actually do install the software, it is complete with as much historical data as you've provided us with, so you are up and running, and we provide you with training and you're ready to go pretty quickly. And that also actually just raises another consideration in mind, and that is ongoing support. We're happy to be able to provide ongoing support. We can do it via email, via telephone, via remote desktop connection, where we can actually securely remote connect to your computer in your school and show you how to use certain features, or if you feel you've happened to discover a software bug or a glitch or something that isn't working right for you, then as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We're happy to do that same remote desktop connection and problem solve. So I'm just going to quickly verify if there's been any additional questions asked. Just take a quick look here. I see we're getting close to the end of our time. Oh yes, someone's asked if they already have a database application in place, but they're interested in making use of our software solely for the purposes of automating the CRA tax, the annual tax calculation. Do we provide that CRA calculation and receipt production as a service, quote unquote? And the answer to that question is we do. You would provide us with your data, and again, we have spreadsheets to manage that. Very easy to do. We install that data at our end into our systems. We run the calculation. We generate spreadsheets so that you can audit and verify those numbers. And when you're satisfied as to the accuracy of the calculation and how it is looking on a per tuition payor basis, then we would generate the receipts and simply email you back in a PDF version those receipts so that you can distribute them to your tuition payors as you see fit. So it is now 11:29. Whoops. And I promised that this would be an hour presentation. So again, on behalf of the Simon Phoenix Group, I want to thank all of you very much for being in attendance today. I hope this has been informative. I hope you've learned, been able to pick up some pieces of information that perhaps maybe you were not aware of before coming into today's webinar. If so, then I've met my own objective for today. We're always happy to speak to any independent school out there. By all means, feel free to get in touch with me, either directly by telephone or via email. For right now, email is certainly the faster of the two ways. So let me take this opportunity of, again, thanking you. A very successful school opening for all of you when you do open up again. And we wish everyone to please stay safe and healthy, so that we can all keep your respective students likewise safe and healthy. So again, thanks very much, and we look forward to seeing you and speaking with you again in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.